Okay, if you're not in the mood for an unscripted waffle, you should probably turn off now. None of my videos are particularly scripted, not that I have enough videos right now for there to be a trend. But this video specifically, it's an off-the-cuff appendix to my video on Helen Zille's upcoming book. So with regards to the import of American cultural and social politics to the country, I wanted to talk about MGTOW because, unfortunately, with the import of America's shit, we don't get the full conversation. What ends up coming here, at least in a mainstream capacity, is one half of a much larger conversation that even the Americans aren't really having, honestly. So we get, and have for a long time, we get feminism. And feminist politics, feminine policies, feminist narratives in the media. We get that one half of a larger conversation. And the other half of the conversation is vilified and left on the shelf back at home. But we should talk about it in South Africa. The idea of MGTOW. If you don't know what MGTOW is, it's men going their own way. And its general philosophical underpinning is that men need to untether themselves from the expectations and sense of validation that comes from society and women. That is to say that men need to find worth in themselves. They can't look for worth from society. They can't look for validation from women. Your ego should be propped up by who and what you are rather than external factors. And the reason I like MGTOW, especially in the South African context, goddamn hot he does. They're like living vuvuzelas, I tell you. Anyway, the reason I like MGTOW in the South African context is that the oppression of women, I don't think that many feminists or feminist commentators understand this, but the root of oppression isn't generally hatred. It's desire, it's value. And so even when we narrow our view, we bring it down from the society-wide level down to the individual. The reason for the oppression of women is because the oppression of women is incentivized by society, right? So think about it socially. A man who can't get laid, a man who can't get sex, will be looked down on by his companions, by women, by society in general. It's looked at as a signifier of low value or status, right? And the problem with that is that you've now put the individual's man's status in the hands of somebody else. He doesn't then have control over how he is viewed by society, because a woman, or woman in general, control that aspect of his status. And because that control has been externalized, the man is compelled to seek control of that external factor which affects his status. And I do think that a lot of the acting out you see by men against women, or against their environment in general, against other men, because that's another way to achieve status, is through the domination of other men. So you control the woman and you dominate the men, and those are aspects of status that a man will fall back on if all else fails him. And in a country like this, all else has failed most men. So you cannot put the fate of yet another aspect of their status in the hands of an external actor without expecting repercussions. Think about the environment of South Africa for a second. Think about the job market. Think about the economy. Think about how many opportunities an individual man has to find validation for himself, to find a sense of self-worth external to himself. We live in a society that doesn't give men the opportunities to actually meet its expectations, and then we wonder why men turn to violence and to crime. And in that society, unfortunately, women are just one more status symbol. They're one more limited resource, and just another reminder of what men don't have. And what MGTOW does that feminism never does, because feminism doesn't confront anything really. Feminism is very first world. It's very ivory tower. It very much comes from a place that thinks it's utopia, and a lot of the issues that it brings up do very little but distract from the actual issues that a society faces and that would concretely benefit the people. And I feel that MGTOW is different in that it recognizes the problems with society, but it also understands that it cannot overhaul society wholesale. So what it does is it encourages men to turn their attention to themselves. And in the context of South Africa and the crime that we have, especially including sexual offences against women, I think that's incredibly important for men to put less of their own sense of self-worth onto the shoulders of women, to have a sense of validation that doesn't come from an association with women. Because if you can do that, if you can decouple a man's sense of self-worth from his association with woman, so if you can have a man feel good about himself, whether or not he knows any woman, speaks to any woman, has any sexual success with women, then you can decouple him from the externalized power that he might try to take back by assaulting a woman. Or rather, you can internalize that power so that he doesn't have to take it from somebody else. And to me, it does seem like that's what men going their own way is all about. It's about internalizing power, it's about taking power, it's about building and creating your own power so that you don't have to take it from somebody else. I'm not saying it's an easy mission for men, especially a lot of the men in this country, and the poverty that they find themselves in, that many of them were born into. But I do think that it's a healthy direction for men to at least start going in, especially if the feminist narratives are going to dominate legacy media. And let's be honest, in the long term, the best bet for everybody in this country might be for us to unplug from the state to the best of our ability. That includes unplugging from the energy grid, unplugging from the police forces, and just unplugging. And if that does come to be the case, you kind of want men who've grown up with a MGTOW philosophy rather than men who've grown up corrupted by a feminist philosophy. Because a MGTOW philosophy will give at least some men the ability to rebuild society if need be. Anyway, as I said, this was a bit of an off-the-cuff waffle, just to give a little bit more context to my concerns about our media adopting American social justice narratives. I'm not going to stand hard and fast by anything I've said here, except for the general sentiment. I think my sentiment comes across quite clearly. And hey, if you like the sentiment, maybe like the video, subscribe to my channel, and then cheers. I'll catch up with you later.